Hello and welcome back to Simple Social Sciences. Today we have a simple psychology session on the social learning theory. By the end of this session, you should be able to describe and evaluate the social learning theory. Let's begin. Okay, so if we look back at the last approach, which was behaviorism, we saw that behaviorists aren't interested in what happens between stimulus and response. They're only interested in observable behavior. Social learning theorists, on the other hand, state that mediational processes take place within an individual to determine if a new response is required. We need to know about a person's mental processes then. That's why the social learning theory is sort of known as bridging the gap between behaviorists and cognitive psychology, as this approach aims to explain the processes involved in between the stimulus and response. Bandura and social learning theorists agree with behaviorists that much of our behaviour is learnt from experience. However, the social learning theory proposed a different way in which we learn. This is through the experience of observation and the imitation of others in a social context. So Bandura aimed to investigate whether social behaviours could be acquired through observation and imitation. 24 children watched a male or female model behave aggressively towards a doll known as the Bobo doll. The adults attacked the doll, some of them used a hammer, and some of them shouted words like pow, boom, as they beat the doll. Each child was then separately taken into a room with lots of toys, including the Bobo doll, and they were observed through a one-way mirror. It was found that children who observed an aggressive model imitated the displayed aggressive behaviours towards the Bobo doll in comparison to the control group who didn't observe a model before they entered the playroom. Additionally, identification makes it more likely that learnt behaviours are repeated. For example, boys were more likely to imitate male models' aggressive behaviour in comparison to a female role model. And later replications slightly modified behaviours to include an additional condition where the model was either punished or rewarded for their behaviour, then beating the doll. As we'd expect, in the condition where the model was rewarded, children were more likely to repeat this behaviour when they encountered the Bobo doll. This type of reinforcement is known as vicarious reinforcement, which basically means learning behaviour through consequences others receive. So the social learning theory bridges that gap between behaviorism and cognitive approach because it explains important internal processes that take place in order for an individual to learn and then display those behaviours, which behaviourists didn't think was important. Bandura referred to this crucial step as mediational processes, and there are 4 of them. The first is attention. The behaviour must grab your attention and maintain your attention in order to be learnt. The second is retention. This behaviour needs to be remembered, obviously, in order to repeat it later. The third is motor reproduction. It must be physically possible for the behaviour to be repeated. Fourth is motivation. This refers to the will to perform the behaviour. It should have a positive outcome rather than a negative one in order for the individual to repeat this behaviour. So mediational processes is what will determine whether an individual will learn and display behaviours after they observe them from the role models. Now let's test how well we understand these social learning theory concepts by taking a look at a new scenario. So we're going to look at Sarah's situation with her parents. Sarah has been a smoker for 2 years. Her parents have been smokers for as long as she can remember. Her mother says she would give up if she didn't have such a stressful life. When her mother comes home after a day of work, she lights up a cigarette and says, "That's exactly what I needed, much better." Now Sarah is about to sit her A-level exams and tells her friend Lucy her smoking is increasing because of the stress. How would you explain Sarah's behaviour using the social learning theory? You can hit pause if you need to, but don't forget you have to use those key concepts in the social learning theory in order to explain Sarah's smoking behaviour. Okay, so there are many things that we can discuss. Let's start off with imitation. So Sarah could be said to have learnt about smoking by imitating those around her. Children often consider their parents to be role models and they want to imitate behaviours they see them carrying out, which is in this case, smoking. We are more likely to imitate those we identify with, and as Sarah's mother is also female and both share many characteristics coming from the same family, this identification may have played a big role in Sarah repeating the observed behaviour of smoking. As her mother expressed how rewarding it was to smoke and how it relieves her stress, this might have acted as vicarious reinforcement for Sarah to start smoking and can explain why Sarah turns to smoking more when she feels more stress around her exams. So those are the key concepts that we need to include in our answer: imitation, role model, identification, vicarious reinforcement. Okay, so now that we understand the theory, we also need to evaluate this theory, which means considering the things that are good about it and the things that are problematic or weaknesses of the theory. So one key strength from the theory is that it offers a more holistic explanation of human behaviour, especially compared to other theories like behaviourism. For example, the social learning theory recognises the importance of cognitive factors in learning through mediational processes, which is something that behaviourists completely dismiss and think isn't important. As a result, we could say the social learning theory provides a more comprehensive explanation of human behaviour, and therefore this increases the validity of the approach to explain human behaviour. However, it could be argued that the social learning theory still ignores important factors, especially biological factors. One consistent finding in the Bobo doll experiments was that boys were more often aggressive than girls. This could be explained by hormonal factors such as testosterone, a hormone more present in greater quantities in boys than in girls. As this important influence isn't accounted for in the social learning theory, this reduces the validity of the social learning theory to explain behaviour. A key issue with the social learning theory is the over-reliance on lab studies. The social learning theory was mainly developed through observation of children's behaviour in lab settings. The Bobo doll has been criticised as the purpose of the doll is to be beaten. This could mean that children just acted as they thought they should have, rather than explaining how social behaviour such as aggression is actually learnt. So this suggests the theory has low external validity and may tell us very little about how children and people learn in real life. On the other hand, the social learning theory has successfully been applied to increase our understanding of human behaviour. One example is the differential association theory of offending, which suggests the probability of someone engaging in criminal behaviour increases when they are 1. Exposed to models who commit criminal behaviour, 2. Identify with these models, and 3. Develop the expectation of positive consequences for their own criminal behaviour. As a result, the social learning theory can be said to have high ecological validity, which increases support for the theory to explain behaviour in the real world. Okay, that's it. You made it to the end of the session. You should now be able to describe and evaluate the social learning theory. If this video is useful to you, please give it a thumbs up. Please share it with someone else who might find it useful. If you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to follow. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. And I'll see you next time.